Welcome to Creative Bites, your go-to podcast for an inspiring mix of creativity, entrepreneurship, communications, and much more. I'm your host, Ivona Fruda, and in each episode, we will bring you compelling stories from the movers and shakers across various industries. We will discover how ideas evolve, how communication shapes our world, and how the entrepreneurial spirit drives progress. Whether you are looking for inspiration, innovation, or just a good story, you will find it here. So, tune in, join the conversation, and explore the many facets of creativity with us. The following conversation is with Paolo Gambi. Paolo is the founder of Poetry Renaissance, the biggest poetry movement in Italy. A poet himself, he enables people to be more creative, more artistic, and more divine in their poetry journeys. Paolo Gambi, it's such a great privilege to talk to you today and also to learn from you. You just said that poetry saved your life, and I'm curious to learn about the challenges that you faced before you discovered poetry as the savior for your life.
Mm-hmm. The challenge is life. Life is a big challenge, and we have to find instruments to face it. Everyone can find a proper instrument to face life. Everyone find its own instrument, and I found poetry. Life has been generous to me. I have to confess. I've been a lucky child. I've had a lucky family, but despite this, I didn't grow up in a war zone or something like this. But despite the fact that I was so lucky, at the end, you have to face the fact that there is evil in life. There is evil inside of you and outside of you. And so you have to cope with that. And when it hits you, then you have to find a way to not to go deep into your abyss. And I have to say,
what was the evil that you faced at that time?
Well, I faced many different evils, but the evil presence, the evil act that I had to face, and that was the most difficult, was the death of my mother, or better, she got an illness when I was 13 or 12, around that age. She got a first cancer, and so I grew up with the fear of losing my mother, and eventually it happened. So I spent many years having this fear. And believe me, when you're young, this kind of fear is very strong and can really affect yourself and can really get deep in your identity. And then I eventually faced the death of my mother. But I have to say that I could even define that, and I really loved my mother. I'm Italian. And so this side of the Italian identity is very strong in me. But my mother was really a great person. I mean, everyone who knew her was admired by her and so on. But I have to say that nowadays I can really define that those moments, that period, a beautiful period, because I really was at the bottom. My worst fear was becoming true, but I was seeing that I was on the edge to fall down in the abyss, but I felt this hand keeping me. And this hand was somehow, I would say, was the hand of God. And it was done of words. And these words helped me to take advantage of that experience, to get deeper into myself, know myself, even in the darkest part. And at the end, I found myself more true than I was before. And I would say I found myself, so for this reason, even more happier, because you can be happy only if you are true. Happiness is only connected to truth, according to me. The words have an importance. And happiness, what is happiness? Just being smiling and laughing? No, for me, happiness is being comfortable with yourself. And yourself is done not only of good sides, not only of light, but also of a lot of darkness. That is why I'm preparing this new book I mentioned to you. about the devil, because I really think that especially the new generations have big problems with coping with the evil. They don't accept that evil is in life, is part of our lives, and is even part of ourselves. So I think that following the representation, I'm working on the iconography of the devil, and I've traced the line from the very first representation of the devil to nowadays, to what I call the satanic aesthetics. But we don't realize that understanding how we depict the devil, how we represent evil, we understand much of us, because it's not something outside of us. We especially if you grew up in the Western world, especially if you grew up in a Christian with a Christian background, we think about the devil as a like a person who is outside of us and is doing stuff, and so it means that you can also avoid him, and you can also not having anything to do with him. But it's not like that. That's a part of ourselves. If you read, for example, Jung, in many different writings of Jung, where he speaks about the what's in English, the collective unconscious, you see that there is everything. All the archetypes you can find there are not just good. There's not only light, there is also a lot of darkness. And I think that if we go back, I'm very fascinated by the beginning of how we started to think about evil. And we started to think about evil, by the way, in a very poetical way. In the Aryan tradition, the founder of the Aryan so-called heresy, which was a doctrine, was Arius, was a of the late antiquity. He decided to define his doctrine through a long poem. So poetry served to do this, but unfortunately, they canceled. It was canceled. I mean, cancel culture is not something new. It's something very old. And so we only have few excerpts of what he wrote, and the few excerpts we have, they are really astonishing, beautiful. And so, according to this doctrine, there is a balance between good and evil everywhere. And the Christ, which is the mediator between the earth and the heaven, is exactly in the middle between these two ones. And so it's like in the Jewish tradition, the devil is the left hand of God. So in the Jewish heritage, there is much more acceptance, in fact, of evil, because for them the devil is a part of the whole of the everything.
It's like yin and yang, right? It's like yin and yang, it's like dark.
Exactly.
And
The yin and yang
light,
theory, exactly. The yin and yang theory is very old, but the depiction of the that we all have in mind, you know, how it's written, that was from the around the year 1000. And the late antiques came to the same idea like 600 years before. And so it's very interesting. But different heritages or a different civilization arrived to the same point, which is balance, having a balance, a harmony in life. And according to me, poetry is what gave a sort of a balance to my life, which is not perfect, of course, and which has a lot of, I get lost very easily, but at the end, I found a balance. And this is why I try to share with everyone this.
How do you, and these days, how do you experience your dark side, and how do you experience your light side?
Interesting question. Well, I think I feel, if your question is how do you know when you're in the dark side, or well, I think it's something that is beyond rationality. I think that the brain can be a trap, because in the brain you have meanings, and it's not said that the meanings you have are really yours. It can be put by someone else, maybe the family or the media. And so I think that a better compass to define if you are in the light or in the darkness is how you feel. But when I say feel, I'm not meaning just emotions, something deeper. When I'm doing something good, maybe my brain is also complaining, but when I know it's good, it's a knowledge I cannot put in words. So I know for sure that this is something, I'm in the light. But in some cases, the brain can also support you. For example, I know that making poetry is good, and I know that by also from a rational point of view, because as I mentioned in another occasion, uh, all the civilizations of history has expressed something through poetry. So it means that there is something very good in poetry, and it survived. To, if you see that from an evolutionary point of view, it's something that has survived all the eras and all the ages and all the cultures and religions and everything. And there's always been someone making poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in that case, I really know I'm doing something good. Actually, I tend not to choose the dark side in the sense of, like, I don't know, by with awareness, like killing someone, or no, I never done this, never experienced this. But let's say on a smaller degree, I've experienced some bad moments. And in that case too, I felt something about feeling. I felt I wasn't in the darkness. Yes, I know. Sometimes when you make poetry, you lose the words. This is what I'm doing now. I don't have the proper words to do that. Also because I'm speaking in language which is not mine. But yes, did I answer to your question?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
And what I also think, like what you mentioned before, what I found very fascinating was that poetry is already saving the world. So poetry is already creating the balance, right, that we are searching for. But could you just elaborate a little bit more about this sentence? Poetry is already saving the world.
Yeah, first of all, the roots of this sentence, you know that Dostoevsky wrote this, so common sentence that beauty will save the world. Krasota spasiot mir. But it's in the future. So he said that it will save the world. So when? If you use the future, is when. So I'm challenging Dostoevsky by saying that beauty is already saving the world, here and now. Because if you can see beauty in the things you have around, you have surrounded by, or if you can see beauty inside of you, you're already saving the part of the world, which is you, and probably someone around you. So you're already doing your best. You're already contributing your verse, as Walt Whitman would have stated. So this is the first thing. But then how? So how can we do that? Poetry is an instrument. Today we would say that art is an instrument, but we have to understand what art is and what poetry is, because when I say poetry in the sense that probably Plato meant. Plato considered poetry an instrument to intermediate between mankind and the divine. Art was not what we call today art, which is art. That stage of mankind was just artisanry. So we don't remember the great artists of the Greek world, but we remember the poets, because they were intermediators, they were mediators, medium between mankind. And we have to wait for by the way, for the Italian Renaissance to think about artists as mediators. We have to wait for Leon Battista Alberti and Leonardo da Vinci, the first two ones who wrote that also a painter can be an intermediator. Is it an English word? Maybe, I don't know. To intermediate, a mediator, okay? Is a medium.
Exactly.
An instrument, a bridge, you understand this? And so what was the question? I got lost, as it usually happens.
No, you said that poetry is saving the world, and you started to mention,
exactly, the
how
instrument.
it's going to happen
Exactly. So poetry is a proper instrument for me, because it really does what has to be done, which is building a bridge between here and somewhere else, between this dimension and another dimension. When we are making poetry, we are not just writing words randomly. If we do that, well, okay, you can call that poetry, but is it? I don't know. When you make poetry, you're like making a journey in another dimension with open ears, and you're listening in the silence of that dimension, and you find some words, and then you take them back to this dimension. According to me, this is making poetry. And this way, beauty is the compass. Beauty is really an interesting compass. And when I say beauty, I'm not meaning the, I don't know, a beauty contest. When I say beauty, I'm speaking about a philosophical um, a concept, which is in this case really, as Thomas Mann wrote in a very good way in Der Tod in Venedig and in The Death of in Venice, that the beauty is both sensitive and beyond the senses. So it's a connection between the dimensions, the two dimension. In one is the dimension of the senses, and the other one is the dimension of the mystery. So when we deal with beauty, we are speaking about this, not about, I mean, girls making a runway or this.
How do you define beauty for yourself?
Well, yes, beauty is exactly this, is the compass that points to what really matters, to what is beyond, what is above, what is in the mystery. Well, it can also be a person. I mean, you can say a person is beautiful, of course. It's not forbidden, but for me, it's diminishing. It's beauty is something much higher. I would say beauty. Well, as an Italian, I use the word beauty much more often than in other languages, because we don't say nice. We say bello, beautiful. But when I say beauty, I'm really meaning. I mean, for me, it's a synonym. If I were in a religious context, for me, beauty is a synonym of God. There is a beautiful sentence in a hadith in Islam which says, "Allah Jamil Wahibu al Jamal." God is beautiful and loves beauty. And this association between, and of course, there is also in the Gospels references to the beauty, when there is a transfiguration and the apostles say it's so beautiful for us to be here. Or even better, you know, the mention of, we call the good pastor, but in Greek it's not good pastor, is kalos, is beautiful, the beautiful pastor. So the association between beauty and divinity, for me, it's crucial. So when I say beauty, I'm saying God.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that explanation. But we know that especially these days, it's difficult to find the beauty. And especially, I believe, in this digital era, it's difficult to find the balance, or it's difficult to find the way to create this pure beauty, this pure poetry. So how do you feel like we should create the poetry in this era?
Why is it difficult in this era? We are living in an era in which we have much less diseases than in the past, and we have technology to talk from Italy to Switzerland, and we can fly. We have a technology which is incredible. Why is it difficult to find beauty? It's much more easy. We have many more instruments to do it.
That's true, but the beauty that you are describing, the beauty connected to God, to divinity, that's something very unique, because everything can be called.
Just get out and just get out and touch a tree, or watch a landscape, or find nature. If you find nature is a good master for me. For me, nature has already all the answers, and there you can find the seeds of this beauty. So it's very easy. Of course, you may say in this era many people don't leave nature as in the past. Yes, probably it's true. So let's help people to get in touch with nature more, and to spend less time in the cage of the brain, or in their mind, and to go outside and be part of that. I think that many things would change. And I mean, many things change in my life. I am not ashamed of the fact that I do a lot of trekking and spend much time in nature, in the Alps, and even in my hometown here, we have forests, and they're often. I'm not ashamed of the fact that sometimes I hug the trees, and when I hug the trees, I really feel an experience that I cannot put in words. I try sometimes. I've written a small collection of poems, which I give for free, by the way, because I have never sold I don't sell my books of poems. I've written 33 books. and most of them are essays or novels, and I sell them. Okay, but the poetry for me is a bit more sacred, so I give them for free, on my website, so everyone who wants can read them. Only a few of them are in English, but anyhow. So I've written a collection of poems which is arboreal. I don't know if it's the word in English. Arboreal poems, and all of them are poems dedicated to tree and love. It's like love poems. For me,
So
trees are really important.
yeah, so you feel like you can create the poetry in this era through the connection to nature?
Oh, that's crucial. I think that if you study the life and the works of the great masters of the past, you notice that all of them had a special relation with nature. Different, of course, in eras and in different for everyone, but they all wrote poems about nature, and so they had this. But really, from Byron to the ancient Greeks, everyone. So I think that this is something that if you want to make poetry, and if you want to be happy, by the way, you have to do it. And I boast myself for one thing, because I like very much to plant trees, and I do that every spring. But this year I did something bigger, because I invited Nobel winner Jon Fosse, as I mentioned to you, to receive my award, the award that I give at the Dante's Tomb, which is the Dante's Laurel. And he accepted, and he came. And not everyone knows that besides Dante's tomb, there is a very old oak tree. It was planted in 1906 by Giosuè Carducci, an old Italian poet who won the Nobel too. And so I collected some seeds from this tree, and I made them planted by the new Nobel winner. And so I wanted to give continuity to this connection between planting trees and the Nobel winners. It's like, I think it's a good way to also to convince people to do this, planting trees. Good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that story. I know that your encounter with Jon Fosse was also very interesting. You mentioned that at some point he just wanted to have a break and just to go and sit in silence because he wanted to listen to the poetry coming to him.
Yeah, I think that meeting Jon Fosse is a life-changing experience. I've never met any other living master like him. He's really a master, someone who talks with God. Really, he really talks with God. If you read what he wrote, and if you haven't, I strongly suggest everyone to read his works, because it's unique. You really find, it's so difficult to say, but the core point of what he does is in the silence. He has a unique way to write. Don't expect great plots, or no, there is no plot there. I mean, he's just saying, he's just telling the story of the universe. And meeting him for me has been a life-changing experience. And yet, what I'm still in the process of understanding what happened, because it happened 2 weeks ago, and we are still corresponding, by the way, and we have corresponded a lot. And but I think one of the things that stuck me most is this concept of silence. He told me that at a certain we talked a lot. He is from Norway, by the way, and I'm Italian. And I was a bit scared because we wrote a lot of emails, but we never met. And when we met, I mean, there is a cultural gap, because we Italians are very Mediterranean, so many emotions and hugs and touching. But I know he's Scandinavian. I've spent much time in Scandinavia, so I prepared myself to be as silent as I could, not moving my hands, trying to be, but in the moment that he saw me at the airport, he arrived to me, hugging me, my dear friend, finally I found you. So I understood that we were on a good track. But the thing that stuck me most probably is this concept of silence. He said that in the silence he hears the words of God. And whatever you think about religion, whatever is your religion, but this sentence, according to me, summarizes years and years and years of explanation of what literature and art should be, just in one sentence. And so he had the capacity of doing this. So really, read Jon Fosse. He's a great master.
Beautiful. And what I also know about you, I know about your wonderful organization, Poetry Renaissance. Could you share a bit more about the reasons for its existence?
Oh, yes, of course. I founded Poetry Renaissance and some years ago. And I'm very happy to say that nowadays is probably the main poetry network in Italy. So it was a good journey. But actually, I really just needed some poetry which could gather people together. I mean, most of the poets I know, or most of the poets I know about, are solitary poets. So they just write some poems and then they probably want to share them, but they don't find a way. So they get frustrated and they start saying that poetry is dead. And so this is a process. Or they find like a small publisher, they publish a collection of poems, but it's not successful because people tend not to read much books of poems nowadays. But even if it's not so true, but not of because there are more people writing poems than people reading poems. That's the problem. And so they get upset, they get frustrated, and then so they leave poetry as a solitary activity. Poetry is certainly a solitary activity. Most of all, I mean, in its identity, because when I write poems, I need to be alone. I mean, I think a poet shouldn't get married because you need time and space. That with a family, it's difficult. No, this is just a joke. But so it's first a solitary activity, but that's not enough. I think that especially in this age, we have to pass from I to we, from me to us. And so I decided to try to work in this direction, and I started to gather poets who wanted to read me poems. I didn't want to be, I mean, like the leader reading his poems and everyone listening. I never did this. I called people to say, please read me one of your poems. But together with one of your poems, you have to read also one poem of a great master of history. Choose who, but you choose who, but associate yours with one. So everyone was compelled to read a little more. That was the point. Because I always state that if you want to write a poem, be sure you have read at least 100. And so, but I should say 1,000. But and so we started like that. And then we started to spread all around Italy, organizing events, live events, readings, giving the opportunity to everyone. Well, really, we didn't care about anything about the people who came. I mean, no, we care a lot about the people, but we are not, I mean, not ideological, political, or nothing. Whatever you think, whatever you want to share, whatever you are, wherever you come from, you can come. Always. This is a key point for Poetry Renaissance. And everyone is a poet, even if not all the poems are the same. But everyone who writes a poem is a poet. Walt Whitman wrote, "You may contribute a verse." Okay, so everyone has verses inside. So everyone is a poet potentially. And this went against all the groups of poets that are around that tends to be only us. We are poets, not the others. And but this way we became 1,000, and we started to organize so many things all around Italy, from Milan to Sicily and everywhere. We started to have connection with the United States. We started to do a lot of things, and now after some years, I give the announcement that I want to recandidate me as a president. So I don't want this movement to be a leader and people following. So I won't be the president anymore. I remain the founder, but I won't be the president anymore. Shortly, someone else will be elected, and I'm very happy. And there is no fracture in this, so I will remain in the council. I will remain, but I don't want to be like a leader-based organization. And so I will have more time to concentrate on my personal work, which is, as I probably mentioned, is about the presence of evil. Yes, I mentioned already. You see, I forget what I say, and so I'm working on these poems of the devil, and many more projects coming. Even because you know that my motto is poetry everywhere, and when I say poetry everywhere, I really mean it. And in the last couple of years, I have put poetry on, I don't know, dozens of different municipalities around Italy in the walls, because I do also visual poetry. So I put them there, one in Los Angeles. And thanks to you, I was also in Zurich a couple of times. And then now I'm going to the Southeast Asia and so on in museum where they did things in museums all around around especially Italy now. But poetry is something serious. You need time to concentrate on that. I consider that as a priesthood, as I said. You have to devote yourself to that if you want to really make poetry. If you want to use poetry for yourself, it's fine. You can have a job, you can do whatever you want. But if you want to make poetry, really, it's a full-time job.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And what is your hope for your future? That's the first question. The second one is, what is your hope for humanity?
My hope for my future?
Yes.
Well, this is an interesting question. My hope for my future is that I hope I find another place to call home. Because at the moment I'm in exile in the city I was born. And so it's a strange situation. And I need to find another place to spend at least half of the year and to let resonate what I'm doing. And I'm thinking about Switzerland, I'm thinking about even the United States, and I'm thinking and looking for opportunities and spaces to do this. So my hope is that I find another place to call home, and to call home and to let what I'm doing resonate. Yes. And the future for humanity, did you say for humanity or for the world?
Yes, for humanity.
Well, I think that I hope that humanity gets some more awareness of being part of the whole, of the cosmos. I hope that humanity can find more, I don't say leave, but can give less importance to an ideological or one of the many ideological approach to life, rather to find a mystical approach, which is holistic. So understanding that we are really part of something much bigger than us that we may call cosmos, or the masters is called cosmos or universe or whatever you want. In this way, when you understand, when you get the awareness that you're part of something so bigger, and you have your mission and you have your meaning to be here, everything is better for everyone.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Low quote. I may quote Game of Thrones. We may, I don't know if someone is acquainted with that, but we all have to find our word, like Hodor. Hold the door. One entire life spent just saying Hodor, hold the door, hold the door, hold the door. We all have a door to hold. We have to find that, and we understand we are part of a bigger plot, much bigger plot. So I think this is my hope for the future of humanity.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time today. And also thank you for this fantastic workshop that you just conducted for us today. I really appreciate that. And I wish you to find your new home as soon as possible, and the place where you would be together with your fantastic work fully accepted and appreciated.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very grateful to you because you gave me this opportunity and the opportunity to run this workshop. We did. And I wish you the best. And the best for me is wishing you good poetry.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Creative Bites. It's been a pleasure sharing these stories and insights with you. Remember, creativity is all around us, ready to be discovered, nurtured, and celebrated. I'm Ivona, and until next time, keep creating, keep exploring, and keep inspiring. Thanks for listening, and goodbye for now.